Chapter 1, Party Crashers, May 14th. Before the sun had kissed the horizon, the celebration was in full swing, which was understandable, seeing as half the Volante kingdom was in attendance. It was Princess Lillian's 18th birthday. The party was more of an informal celebration, with the entire kingdom invited to give the princess their well wishes. Her actual birthday had been a few days ago, when they had held her official coming-of-age coronation to ensure that if something should happen to her parents, fate forbid, she would become queen. A lot to take in for an 18-year-old, even though she'd been preparing for this moment since birth. It also meant her dating life was going to become more serious as well, which she was not too sure about. Not only was the coronation an important rite of passage, but also a time to join the royal families together, which was becoming hard to find time to do now that the children were getting older. Royal guests included Queen Aurora, her children Avery and Layla, along with Queen Cinderella and King Louis and their daughter Olivia. Both Marcus and Jacob were absent, not because they were too old for such things, quite the opposite. They had been away now for almost a year on an important quest searching for a cure for Jacob's father, King Philip. The princes had kept some correspondence and last said they had a promising lead on a reclusive wizard named Merlin on the continent of Britannia, who might be of assistance. In the meantime, they sent their best wishes to Lillian on her important day. The royal party was a sight to behold. Carriages outlined in gold and decorated with the most luxurious fabrics were pulled by beautiful white horses down a sweeping drive that circled a great fountain at the end. Smiling valets opened the doors and helped guests down. Stairs led to the fantastic double doors with the kingdom's great seal placed proudly in the center. These doors were slowly opened by doormen who bowed and invited all into the festivities. A symphony of sounds from musicians, games, laughing, and joking greeted the guests' ears. The great hall was a dizzying display of activity. Tricksters, jugglers, acrobats, dancers, magicians, people, and food. Oh, the tables of food! Aromas of the most succulent delicacies flowed over the crowd like a gentle wave. Exotic fruits from all over the continent, roasted pork, chicken, and smoked salmon, pastries, chocolates, and the sweetest sweets to tempt the most diligent wills. A different bottle of wine to complement each type of cheese. Decorations garnished the hall, and elaborate banners trimmed in gold stitching hung from every corner. Streamers flowed from column to column, accenting the glorious colors that adorned the hall. And of course, the occasional confetti popper was heard from the children who were weaving in and out of the crowd. Laughs spilled out around the silly games being played like Don't Sit on the Cake or Pick the Basket. An older group of children cheered on two others to see who could handle their dragon fire drops, a sweet yet intense candy that would enable a brave soul, if his tongue could last, to breathe a burst of fire from its liquid elixir encased inside. Grayson, the resident wizard, had even managed to manifest a dazzling light show with his crackling stars that was nothing short of spectacular. A good time was had by all until, "Andrew!" Lillian chased her brother with the ferocity that only an older sister could. However, Andrew was quick on his feet and made his way to his mother, Snow White, before suffering Lillian's wrath. "Mom, help me! She's going to twist my ear off!" Andrew cried as he hid behind the queen. "Come here, you little troll!" Lillian fumed. "I didn't do it, Mom, I swear." "He's lying, Mom. This is the third time he's put cream in my hair, which now looks like a swamp rat," she explained as she lunged for Andrew. "No, I didn't. It was Ethan this time." Snow White looked down at her son. "This time?" It was hard to hear the disdain in her voice, as heavenly as it was, but her look conveyed the meaning perfectly. Andrew realized he had unintentionally incriminated himself. "I mean every time. This was the first time, I mean. It's all Ethan's fault." Andrew was quickly failing at any plausible explanation to exonerate himself and was convicting his best friend at the same time. Usually Andrew and Ethan romped around with Marcus and Jacob during these engagements, which kept the younger boys out of trouble, mostly. But in the older boys' absence, Andrew and Ethan had become quite the pests as of late. Lillian had taken the brunt of their practical jokes, unfortunately, and she was ready to tear his ears off. "Lillian, calm down, sweetie." "But Mom, he—" "I said I will handle this," Snow White reassured her. "Go upstairs and have Alondra help fix your hair. It will be fine." Lillian gave one last disgusted look at her brother hiding behind the queen and turned to go upstairs. She hurried past her father, King Harry, who was conversing with his brother, King Louis, and his wife, Queen Cinderella, rulers of the Tapera kingdom. King Harry almost asked Lillian what was wrong, but thought better of it when he saw her face. He had seen that look before and knew Andrew was up to no good. The king caught the eye of his wife, who motioned to him she had things under control. Lillian walked up the winding staircase, leaving the festivities of her birthday behind. Some birthday. She quickly walked to her room on the second floor and sat down on her bed, almost in tears. It was a conflicting scene to see someone so beautiful in such a luxurious room so upset. Alondra entered shortly after, and Lillian wiped her eyes. "Pardon, my lady," Alondra apologized, "but your mom said you required my assistance." Yes, Lillian waved her in. "It's okay, Alondra, come in." Alondra walked over and joined Lillian on the bed. "I'm sorry, I'm just upset." "About Andrew, my lady?" "Oh, to be certain I'm angry with him, but this isn't about him. He just happened to be the raindrop that caused the flood. I don't know. It's nothing. Forget it. Let's just go back to the party. I am the guest of honor, after all." "Not before we get you looking like it. Now let's see what that ornery brother of yours has done this time." They walked over to the vanity, and Alondra did her best to remove the sticky mess from Lillian's hair. Lillian liked Alondra. She had been the maidservant to the princess since her birth. Alondra was someone Lillian respected and could talk to without getting a lecture about her duties as a princess. The older woman entertained Lillian with stories that always seemed to help Lillian through her difficult times. "It's a boy, isn't it, Miss Lillian?" Alondra asked as she combed out some tangles. "What? Of course not. It's just—" Lillian let out a sigh. "You always seem to know." "It's Richard Burkhart, isn't it? The merchant's son? The one who's been courting you for what? Now a month?" 6 weeks, Lillian interjected. 6 weeks. What has he done to get you so upset? He seems like a nice enough young man, and he sure is handsome." "Alondra!" Lillian was surprised her maidservant took such notice of things after being married for so long. "Sweetie, I may be married, but there's no harm in looking." Lillian sighed. "He is nice. He treats me like a true gentleman would, not like Reginald, who was only after my crown and the royalty perks. Can you believe he had the audacity to ask me if I would ask my dad if we could use the royal cottage to throw a party for his friends? He even wanted to take the royal carriage. What a jerk." "I didn't see you shedding any tears over that one, handsome or not." "I know, and Richard is very attractive, but—" "What, sweetie?" Lillian turned to face her friend. "It's just that I don't feel what I think I should be feeling. He's nice, he's smart, he's funny, he's good-looking. He comes from a good and respected family. He's everything a girl should want. But I just get this sense like we're missing something." "Why do you think that is?" Lillian pointed to a portrait of her family hanging over the hearth. "My parents. They are so happy with each other. And the way it all came together almost seems magical, like some greater force pulled them together because they were made for each other. And sure, Richard makes me happy, but I don't know if I'm happy with him. Is any of this making sense? I just want what they have. A prince rescuing a princess, sweeping me off my feet, love's first kiss, happily ever after. I mean, I'm a princess. Isn't that what's supposed to happen?" Alondra took a deep breath. "Sweetie, every girl wants and deserves those things, princess or not. A magical relationship isn't just reserved for those of royalty. Take my husband and I, for example. Well before he was to become your father's head advisor, he worked in the stables. I had just been hired as your maidservant, and had headed down to get some fresh milk for you. When I walked in, no one was there. I waited for a couple of minutes and had turned to leave when in walked Henry, with his shirt off no less. My heart skipped a beat. And even when I even forgot to breathe for a second, not to mention why I had come down there in the first place." Lillian smiled. "But I somehow managed to get out milk." He smiled that gorgeous smile of his and turned to help me get some. Unfortunately for him, he had forgotten where he had set some buckets and tripped over them, falling headfirst into a big pile of manure. "No way!" Lillian said, wide-eyed. Alondra held her hand up. "Truth to the fairies. So, not exactly a first kiss under the glass kind of impression." Alondra winked. "I later heard from Elise in the kitchen that Henry had been just as flustered as I was. Apparently the sun was coming in from a hole overhead, illuminating me with a ray of heavenly beauty, as he put it. After 2 weeks of shy exchanges and smiles and glances, he finally asked if he could court me. When I said yes, it gave him the confidence to talk to your father about some ideas he had. ultimately becoming your father's right-hand man. 18 years later, here we are, still as happy as ever, although there is always the inside joke of him being full of it after his plunge. Both women laughed at this thought. But you know what? Said Alondra. Lillian gave her an inquisitive look. My heart still skips a beat whenever Henry enters the room. Alondra blushed at the thought of it. But not everyone's story is like that, sweetie. Most people go months before they get that feeling. Even I wasn't totally convinced about Henry until after we had been seeing each other for about 6 months. So I guess my point is, it doesn't matter who it's with or what the circumstances are, but if you're with the right person, you'll just kind of know. Lillian smiled. And however you meet, that will be your fairy tale, your happily ever after. Thanks, Alondra. I really... Boom! Lillian's statement was cut short as a thunderous blast from downstairs rocked the room.